Welcome to episode 2 of Warhammer Daemons, the show that takes a close-up look at the many varied units that are available to the demon player of the Warhammer Fantasy Battle game. Tonight, we're going to be taking a look at the Lord of Change, the Greater Demon of Tzeentch. Before you see the Lord of Change. Just like the Bloodthirster, this is the older model that was made back in 1994. Back in 1994, this guy would have cost you 700 points to put on the field. He was a level 4 wizard, and he could fly. His stats, pretty impressive. Weapon skill 9, strength 7, toughness 7, wound 7, initiative 10, attack 6, leadership 10. Well, those things have changed as with all the other models. Currently, in the army list, he is a Lord choice. And like all the other greater demons, he's going to cost you 450 points. For that, he still flies. He now has flaming attacks. And like the other greater demons, he's a large target and he causes terror. Weapon skill 6, strength 6, toughness 6, 5 wounds, initiative 6, 5 attacks, leadership 9. Also, he comes as a level 2 wizard who knows all of the spells in the Tzeentch lore. That's right, he's level 2 and he knows all the spells. There is no need to roll. Like the other greater demons, he has some options that are available to him. The demonic gifts, as well as the ability to beef up his spell casting. For 50 points, you can make him a level 3 wizard, and for 85 points, you can make him a level 4 wizard. Now let's face it, if you're taking a Lord of Change, it's because you want to do something in the magic phase, so you might as well spend the points and bump him up to a level 4. Now let's take a closer look at the demonic gifts. As with the other greater demons, you can only spend 100 points, and there are many options to choose from. My personal favorite is the one at the top of the list that weighs in at 75 points. That is Twin Heads. What that does for you is it gives you +2 to all your casting rolls. I wish I was a better modeler. I'd love to put another head sprouting out of this guy's torso somewhere. So I like to try and play WYSIWYG, but sometimes maybe I'll have to just say it's twin brains or come up with some other explanation or stick an extra head on him with putty somewhere. The thing to keep in mind when using twin heads is that in order to successfully cast a spell, regardless of all other bonuses, your die roll has to total 3 or more. So if you think you can sneak by and get that magic missile with a 4 casting number off by just rolling 1 die, if you roll a 1 or a 2, you're going to fail, even though you get to add 2 to it. Keep that in mind. I know a lot of people tend to forget that rule. The next thing they have in line is 70 points, and that's Tzeentch's Will. What that allows you to do is re-roll a single die per player turn. That's right, a single die per player turn, not game turn. So turn 1, my turn, I get a re-roll 1. Turn 1 during your turn, I get a re-roll 1. And unlike other re-rolls, this specifically says that it can prevent a miscast or cause an irresistible force. This guy's going to be rolling a lot of dice in the magic phase during the game, so that's a handy one to have. Next up for 50 points is a weapon, the Staff of Change. The staff says specifically that it's a hand weapon. His entry also says he has claws, and those are a hand weapon. So my reading of the rules is that since he's got 2 things that are specifically hand weapons, that he would get the extra attack. I don't know how other people are playing it, but that's, I think, a pretty valid interpretation, although for some reason, I don't ask me why, it just doesn't feel right to me. But what that does is that for every wound that, if a model takes an unsaved wound from him, they're going to have to take a toughness test or be instantly slain. Sounds pretty cool. The only thing, though, is that I just don't like putting this guy, making him into a close combat type of build. I think he's more designed to be what he is, a wizard, a really good caster. And I don't really like to try and give him things that are going to try and buff him as far as combat goes. 50 points. Next item is a Spell Destroyer. That gives him an auto dispel, just like a scroll, and then the spell's lost on a 4+. There's other items out there that do that. It seems to be the going rate is 50 points. 30 points, Power Vortex, gives him +1 power dice. All the rest of the gifts that you can give this guy are 25 points. The Dark Magister gift allows him to ignore the first miscast. The spell's still going to fail, but he's not going to have to make any miscast rolls. Demonic Robes, people fighting against him He can't be wounded on any better than a 3+. So if you got something that's a higher toughness than him, even if it's much higher, it's still only going to be a 3+ that they're going to need. They're not going to need a 2+. Now, he's already toughness 6. So if something's tough or strength 8, 9, or 10, that's going to come into play. So I don't really think that's a terribly useful gift to give him. His toughness is already pretty high, and like I said, you really want to try and keep him out of combat. Might help him out against cannonballs, which are the bane of greater demons anyway. So there's the Flames of Tzeentch, gives him D6 strength 4, 18-inch shots. His ballistic skill's only 4. That's similar power to what the Flamers have. The Iridescent Corona, that at the beginning of combat, all models in base-to-base contact with him are going to take a strength 3 hit before the combat. And lastly, there's Master of Sorcery, which would allow him to take any magical lore from the rule book, and he would know all the spells in that. I like the Tzeentch lore. I like the fact that he already gets all the spells. Don't really care for the Master of Sorcery too much. However, I can see if you're trying to design a take-on-all-comers list, something for a tournament, it might be handy. You see who you're facing and say, well, I'll go with the lore of metal. I see a lot of knights, or I'll go with the lore of fire. I can wipe a lot of this stuff out. So that I could see that coming in handy. The builds that I like on this guy are the combo of the Twin Heads and the Dark Magister, or the Tzeentch's Will and the Power Vortex. What I feel those builds try and do is maximize his spellcasting potential while also trying to cut down on the possibilities of a miscast. You got the Dark Magister with the Twin Heads. You're boosting your casting rolls by 2, and the ability to ignore that first miscast. Or the Tzeentch's Will with the Power Vortex, you're getting that extra power die, and with the Will, you can re-roll some dice in there throughout the course of the game to potentially avoid miscast or cause irresistible force when you need it. Normally, at this point, we'd be done, but there are some spells of note here, since he's going to be casting them a lot in the lore of Tzeentch. There's the Boon of Tzeentch, which only requires a roll of 3 or better to cast, and what that does is it gives him D3 plus 1 power dice. So you spend a die, see if you can get it, and you get at least 2 back on average. So, or excuse me, 3 back on average, but at least 2 back minimum. So I think it's well worth it. Glean Magic's neat. It allows him to cast another wizard spell. And then you got the Bolt of Change. That's a magic missile, 18-inch range, 2d6 hits that are going to hit with a strength of d6 plus 4. On average, 7 strength, 7 hits or so. So those are the spells that he has access to. Went a little long today, but if you haven't been able to tell, there's a soft spot in my heart for the Lord of Change. Despite the fact that all my opponents refer to him as the Big Chicken, I really like fielding this guy, and I think you will too. So give him a shot. And next up, going down the list, looks like we'll be dealing with the Great Unclean One. So stay tuned for more Warhammer Demons. Thanks for sticking with me.